Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. And today, me and Liam are joined by a fan of the channel, none other than Brian, of course, who has been on before. He pitched a supermassive game story, which we will put in the description for you to watch if that takes your fancy. But today, Brian's going to be telling us about his idea for what Until Dawn 2 is going to look like. So, first of all, hello, Brian.
Hi, Jack. Hi, Liam. Hi, everyone else. It's great to be back. I can't believe it's been almost like 2 years. We're in 2025 now. So, how time flies.
Yeah, tell me about it. But honestly, the floor is yours. So tell us. So, how does it follow on from like maybe the Sam and Josh ending from the end of the remaster? Something like that?
Right. So thank you. And thank you guys for this opportunity and for allowing me to share my idea. So basically, the idea is, and this is obviously going to divide some of the fan base because in order for an Until Dawn 2 to work, and obviously like in my head canon, the Quarry is a sequel to Until Dawn, or it's more of a spin-off, um but this is a sequel as in it is going to continue after the events of the first game. So for Until Dawn 2, unfortunately, it will have to canonize certain things in the first game, and and like I said, this would divide a lot of fans because their version of Until Dawn, they might want that to be canon, and they might not want this character to die or this character to survive. It really depends on a personal preference. But in order to make a sequel, you do have to, unfortunately, take the choice out of certain players, paths in order to make the sequel. Like that's an unfortunate thing, and and the choices that I'm going to be talking about is that Mike survives no matter what, and so does Sam. So Mike and Sam are the canonical characters that survive the game. Everyone else can die, but Mike and Sam have to survive Until Dawn in order because they are going to be main characters in the sequel, and that is part of. They are the only characters from the first game that you get to play as in the sequel. And I think one reason I did this is because they are characters with the highest plot armor in the first game, and people do say when you ask who the main character is for Until Dawn, a lot of people say Mike, a lot of people say Sam, and then some people say it's an even split between them. And so yeah, I would have Mike and Sam be the main characters in Until Dawn 2. And this is also a big thing too, is that Josh becoming a Wendigo, it would have to be canon in order for this ending to work. I'm sorry, for the sequel to work. So even though Josh can survive, and there was that, an ending where he survives in the Until Dawn remake, where he could, be saved. I think canonically, and because it's been like this for so long, for so many years, we're almost at like 10 years now, the anniversary of Until Dawn. So I just think canonically, Josh becoming a Wendigo is necessary for the sequel. So that's just some of my current ideas. Like, and I want to move forward, but I was curious on what you guys thought about that because I've seen actually games do this. If you guys don't know, Dead Rising is a pretty popular, or it was a popular series, and it always had different endings. But when they do a sequel, one of they always establish what's the true canon ending from the previous game in order to make the sequel. So this is something I would do for Until Dawn 2. So how do you guys feel about this?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because like when you have like a canon or like a choice-based game that presents you multiple endings, the minute an idea of a sequel comes in, like you either have to like discount a lot of those choices to put everyone back on track, or you've got to like really put in extra work to do different layers, which a lot of people don't have the time and budget to do. So like obviously this ending we've seen in Until Dawn, it does have Sam in it. So like I think like yeah, that it's a given we'll have Sam in the game. And obviously that will split people because certain people will turn around and say, well, Sam died in my game. But I feel you are right. I feel like you will have to canonize certain endings, and I feel like, the only way around it is for them to state something along the lines of, well, in this version of events, Sam's alive, and they're just gonna have to like go with that. So yeah, but yeah, I like what you said about maybe having Mike and Emily in it, because it would be interesting to see which of the cast does come back. If I personally wrote it, I would probably just make Sam a solo warrior in this, and maybe like put a new fresh cast in there to kind of minimize those criticisms. But yeah, no, strong start anyway.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring it up, Brian. You know, like the whole fans getting divided on how it should work. It's actually an idea for a video that we've got coming up, is that whether choice-based games should have sequels, because you are ultimately neglecting a lot of the choices that people have made in the original game. But I quite like your idea, and I know that this is a sweeping statement, but I feel like, as you said, Sam and Mike, they are the plot armor characters. They are the characters that probably have the strongest chance of getting from the beginning of the game all the way to the end. So therefore, when you're making a sequel, it's probably a little bit more palatable to the player. Of course, there's going to be people out there that say, no, Mike died for me and Sam died for me and X person made it to the end. But, as I say, for a sweeping statement, I feel like a lot of the Until Dawn community would probably accept that, because Mike seems to be the alpha male and Sam's probably the alpha female of the group, so it probably makes sense to lead with them in the next game. And then as having with Josh as the Wendigo, I think that's just a very good way to start off with the game as well, because you've got the backlog, you've got the history between Sam and Josh. I think it just adds that little bit of sort of spice and drama to what the events could be going into the next game as well. So yeah, I really like the sound of it so far, Brian.
All right, awesome. Yeah. The Josh one is definitely like would be extremely divided, but I have a huge reason for it, and this is partially why it could work, and it has to work in the sequel. And okay, and here is why the story needs it to have be Josh as the Wendigo, and it's because the sequel is going to take place 10 years later, and when Mike and Sam are going to, at some point, let's say 10 or so years after the events of the first game, they reunite in some way. I'm not sure how. Obviously, those are specifics that need to be touched on. And, depending on, like, for example, as Mike, you could kill Emily. And, like, in that version of your choices, Mike would have been in prison for the last decade or so. And then he gets released or something like that. Or, you know what I mean? Like, he served his time, and then Sam has been doing stuff in her life, and obviously also with the post-credit scene with Sam, you need to flesh that out, like explain that whole thing. And even I myself don't really understand that whole post-credit scene with Sam, but the idea behind this is Mike and Sam manage to meet up again after it's been 10 or so years, and we get to see small cameos from the other characters, but they're not in the story. So like Chris, Ashley, Matt, Emily, and Jess, they are not major characters in this game. They just have small cameos. And the reason for this is because in this game, it is going to take place during Christmas time. And 10 years after the events of the first game, Mike and Sam discovered that an entire town has been wiped out by Wendigos. And it turns out that the government had a secret lab in this town, in a simple town during Christmas time, and the entire town got massacred by the Wendigos. And it turns out the reason for this is because they discovered there was a secret government lab, and in that lab they discover that Josh has been in there for 10 years as a Wendigo, that he has been there as a science experiment, and that he got free and is the new head Wendigo, like Hannah was, leading the Wendigos. There's a new generation of Wendigos, and they slaughtered the entire town. And as Mike and Sam, you are going to meet other characters in the town and, survive, obviously, until dawn. And that's basically what the sequel is going to be. It's going to be Sam and Mike having to help these new characters survive, but also dealing with their past of Josh is now the new Hannah.
Oh, I really like that. So, you know what? The first thing that you brought up there was about how if Mike shot Emily, he could then be in prison for 10 years. So one thing I wanted to quickly ask you then, because you've talked about canon characters already. So at the start of the game, like almost what we saw with Double Exposure, with like the Chloe being alive or not, would you have like the player respond to certain choices to almost answer what happened in the previous Until Dawn going into their gameplay?
Sort of, yeah. I would definitely do a scene where you play as Mike and Sam. Right after the events of the first game, we get to see Mike finding out that Jess is alive, depending on if you depending on your choices from the first game, we get to see Mike finding out Jess is alive, or we get to see Matt finding out that Emily was murdered by Mike. And that whole scene at the police station where the cops are interviewing them, not believing them about the Wendigos. I would definitely do a scene where all these characters reunite and talk about that night. And this is how every character from the first game, at least, besides Mike and Sam, they at least get a cameo of like a couple lines and stuff. But like I said, obviously they are not main characters in the game. They're living their own lives while Sam and Mike are doing the whole story in the game. But we get to see the resolution of what happened right after the events of the first game in the police station. We get to see everyone, reuniting and find out who lived, who died, that sort of thing. I would add that in at some point in the game.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about your potential Until Dawn 2 plot is that being set in a town with, like a new Wendigo outbreak, I'm looking at a lot of potential endings you can have to this game. So it could be that like you have a bad ending where the outbreak gets out and that could potentially spread to another town and, potentially could be like a pandemic. And then, maybe the ending choice is something along the lines of like, do you kill Josh to like minimize that risk? Or do you spare him because he's your friend? And there could be some real tough choices in the game as well. And I live for those choices that split the room. That's what really makes the genre to me. So yeah, there's a lot of leeway and like, direction you can go with this pop. So yeah, no, I'm pretty impressed by it.
Thanks, man. It happened recently, actually. One of my great friends, Walker Dead Phoenix, he actually finished playing. I'll give you a link to his channel. He actually finished playing Until Dawn, the remake, on his channel late last year, and he loved Until Dawn. He said I think he said it was better than Outlast, like darker. Like when he found out that Beth died and I helped hype him up with the mystery. He was always like, yeah, what happened to Hannah's body? What happened to Beth's body? He's like all these mysteries, like that I knew, but obviously he didn't know what was happening. And then when Hannah comes out of the water and takes Josh, when Josh screams Hannah, and then he finds out that Wendigo this whole time was Hannah, his mind is just blown. And I love seeing his reaction because it's just a fantastic game. And yeah, but that's when I came up with the idea for a sequel. It's that like, hey, what if 10 years after the events of the first game, a new generation of Wendigos comes back, and like I said, it's because of the government. So what would happen is after the first game, when Josh becomes a Wendigo, he actually gets at some point found out about the government. They find out about him, and like I said, they have been keeping him in this lab this whole time, and that is one thing I would do. And also we could also maybe get like new type of Wendigos possibly. So so I'm gonna post the pictures right here, but this is how Wendigos normally look in folklore. But part of me thought, like, what if they changed the Wendigo look a little bit? Would you guys be okay with that? I don't know how I feel about it, but I think it would be cool if the Wendigos had new powers in this game. In the sequel, like they can call on each other, you know what I mean? Like when they see a human, they can call others in, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, what do you guys think of the traditional pictures for Wendigos? And do you guys think the Wendigos could have new powers, which would change things up for us, but also Mike and Sam,
I was gonna say, like, yeah, like for me, Wendigos are like already really strong and terrifying, and it's already an unfair advantage against the like main cast, the group of teens in the first one anyway. But I do feel if you're having a second game and you are bringing Wendigos back, you probably would want to elevate them in some capacity. And because if you are going down the science lab angle, you could easily have it where these scientists want to like modify them to some extent, whether it makes, whether it's to make them a weapon of some sort. So yeah, there's definitely, I would certainly be open to the idea of having a modified Wendigo.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's just, man, I get so excited when I think about these ideas and the potential. Like, I really wanted to submit this idea. I talked to someone on Instagram, and I really wanted to submit this idea to someone from someone in Supermassive, but I just don't know how. Like, because I'm like really bad at like getting a hold of people. But like, yeah, I just love this idea, and yeah, the idea behind it obviously is that Josh is the new head of the Wendigos, and like I said, it's in a town that was about to celebrate Christmas when the Wendigos escaped the lab and got free. And like I said, they're different because of the science experiments, but also it's been 10 years, new generation of Wendigos. And the reason for that is because maybe in this government lab, these scientists and maybe they were experimenting on homeless or prisoners, and they turned them into Wendigos. And maybe we could find out that when the characters told the police everything they knew about the Wendigos, maybe we can get a flashback scene where certain government agents, maybe they go to Mike and Sam and Chris, Ashley, Matt, all the characters that survived in the first game, and they get them to sign this, hey, you cannot talk about what happened that night. Maybe that could be like a plot twist in the game where the characters had to sign legal documents to never discuss the events of that night with anyone, or they go to jail or prison or something for the rest of their life. And maybe that's something also the game could add, where the government saw the potential in Wendigos as being a possible weapon for them to use, but obviously, with human nature, obviously it backfires on them heavily. And also Josh being the head Wendigo, and that's literally Sam and Mike literally, seeing Josh again is like literally their past is coming back again to haunt them, and it would be absolutely crazy. And then also one thing I would do in this game is that we play as Josh as a Wendigo. If you guys ever played Marvel Spider-Man, you get to play as the game lets you play as Venom and for a little bit, and I think would be such a cool idea to play as the villain of the game just for a little bit. And what I mean by that is, at some point in the game, maybe there's like a group of soldiers that get sent into the town to wipe out the Wendigos or kill them, stop them from escaping. And as Josh, the new head Wendigo, you get to play as him, and you get to just destroy this squadron, like squads of soldiers, Wendigo style, brutally. And yeah, it gives you the power of being a Wendigo in that part of the game. So that's one thing I would do.
Interesting. I really like it. It's almost like a Area 51 project gone wrong, isn't it? Like the Wendigo escaping and it's affecting a town and stuff. You know what? Coming back to the design, I've just seen the pictures that you've sent through. These look really cool. I love the fact the one with almost like the antlers going on. I can imagine that's some cool deaths where you could hook bodies on it and stuff like that. I feel like for me, in terms of its design, I probably wouldn't stray too far away. I quite like the milky eyes and the flayed skin and stuff like that. But because it's almost a scientific lab Wendigo, I feel like slight changes would be pretty cool. And you know what? Making it like a science lab Wendigo, it helps with that whole thing as well, with the cannibalism. So maybe these forms of Wendigos, they don't have to be created through cannibalism. They've literally just been made in a lab, and that's why they're able to populate and spread out and start to take over towns and stuff. So you know what, as you're talking, even ideas are coming to me, and I'm really liking the idea.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I really like the idea too. What about you, Liam?
Yeah, no, it's certainly because for me, when I saw that they had this scene with Sam at the end of Until Dawn, I was like, what I say to a lot of these games, I'm like, oh no, leave it alone. Just stop making those scenes. That means we're going to get something horrible come around the corner. Because I still retain that if done wrong, it's going to be such a horrible thing to witness, because Until Dawn is lightning in a bottle, and I think it should be kept that way. And I was just trying to toy with the idea of what I would do for a second game, and the only sort of idea I remotely really had was, I look at the horror film The Descent, which is about people that go caving and they go underground, and there's these creatures that live there. And then in the second game, they go back there with like a squad to find someone who went missing down there. So I feel the only way I could get around it is by making it not horror but an action game. And maybe you have Sam with a bunch of soldiers, so it's like people that are equipped with guns and stuff. But realistically, I just don't think that's what the OG Until Dawn fans would want. So yeah, like, I look at your idea and I think it would be much more suitable, to be honest.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, because like with Until Dawn, like too, obviously with Wendigos, you know what you're getting, but that's why like I think it might be a good idea to change their design a little bit, but also give them a new set of powers. And like I said, it could be certain things where like they know if there's fire, like they're a little more intelligent maybe because of the whole science experiments and stuff. Maybe the way they call things too. Maybe you can't just, maybe it's a little bit different than the first game. Maybe you can't just stand like still in front of them and you're like completely blind. Maybe you also have to be hiding in snow. Maybe they like respond to body heat too. Like it's just a lot of things where it's like you could like raise the stakes a lot. And also, I don't remember which one of you said it, but yeah, the different endings, that would definitely be something like, you Mike and Sam and the survivors you find in the town, maybe you can just be killed by wendigos, or you get killed by soldiers that are ordered to kill anyone or anything that tries to escape the town, and there's no survivors. Or maybe the town gets firebombed or nuked or something, or maybe the wendigos escape. And like there's just so much there where you could have different endings. And obviously, like, we know it's wendigos, but they're different. They're back. They're different now, and I would say the stakes are higher than ever before. But obviously, yes, with Until Dawn, you can't get the same level of fear like you had in the original game, because these are wendigos. We know what to expect now, more or less. Like in the quarry, I wasn't that scared during the quarry because I experienced Until Dawn and I knew they couldn't replicate it the same way. But this is how, like, well, I mean, this is how you do a sequel. You use wendigos, but you don't want to make it exact. But you can't make it like the first game, so that's why I suggested maybe some changes with the wendigos.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what? I've just been sat here and I've been like almost semi-crafting my own idea, and it's not anywhere near as thought out as yours, Brian, but I'm almost just thinking on the fly here. And it does come off the back of the ending of the remaster, where it's quite clear where we see Sam maybe has PTSD. She's got pills and she's struggling from like the events of Until Dawn and like the caves and the mines and whatnot. But I think my idea would be to take it to Hollywood, and I know that sounds a little bit out there, but I wouldn't want it to be a carbon copy of Until Dawn. I wouldn't want to go back to the Washington Mountains. I want it to feel very, very different. I've just got this image in my head of like a Wendigo outbreak, and you've got Wendigos hanging on like the Hollywood sign, and it almost is like to mirror like what the Wendigos did, like hanging on the chandelier in the first Until Dawn. And perhaps there's an outbreak, and the people you play as, obviously you'd get to play as Sam, but you'd have some like larger than life characters. Maybe you've got some like actors in there. You never know, you could get people to play as themselves. Like if they were to get a celebrity cast, I know this sounds like really big budget, but if you used to get a celebrity cast, you could get them to play as themselves. So you're like in LA, Hollywood's been taken over by Wendigos, and it's just a bit, larger than life. So it's probably a bit out there. It's probably what none of the fans would want. But yeah, maybe like a movie set Until Dawn. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. I personally just like the idea of the Wendigos. I am not suggesting the characters go back in the lodge, because so many fan fictions of Until Dawn, like people think that Until Dawn 2 should have the characters going back to the lodge, but I would change this where that doesn't happen. And you know what I mean? Because it's one thing to do a sequel, but it's another thing to make the characters go back to the same place. By bringing the Wendigos to us in America, like, it's not the lodge anymore. Now it's like, hey, now they're outside. the lodge. Now they can exist outside the lodge, which means they can get out more and more, and it would be a problem. Also, there's the issue with the cold. Like, wendigos don't like sunlight, they don't like warm temperature, so that's something also I don't think I want to change too much in the game. But obviously in Until Dawn, in Until Dawn 2 there would be the town, that's like I said, imagine it's Christmas decorations everywhere, but you've got blood, bodies hanging, and you just have the wendigos, you have the forest, like, so there is like more than just the woods, in the sequel. There's the whole town, obviously. And then also one thing I thought about was, um, and I thought about maybe introducing a character in the game that tells Mike and Sam that why this is happening, that human beings were once again meddling with something they shouldn't have, and this is the repercussions. This is death, like death's action, like, you know what I mean? And what I mean by that is, like, I've always thought in Until Dawn 1 and 2, death kind of acts more, it's not just death is not really a force of just a force of nature. He's kind of like a person too, somewhat, in the Until Dawn universe, because I kind of always, when Hannah was a Wendigo, I always saw her as a pawn of death. You know what I mean? Like, to kill as many of the characters as possible, and you know what I mean. So and also, when you could do things like kill the bird or kill the squirrel, or as Ashley, you could be unapologetic. Those random things accidents were still happening to the characters, like the icicle or the wood that falls. And to me, I just got the sense that death acts supernaturally when something happens that human beings should not be interfering with. So I thought it would be cool if the character mentioned to Mike and Sam, they survived that night at the lodge because they survived until dawn. Death let them be because you know what I mean? Because they survived until dawn. But now humans once again meddled in something they shouldn't have. They messed with nature. They messed with death. And because of that, death is coming after them through these agents, And another idea I had was in the laboratory, we find out how Josh escaped. This is just one idea I had, but I had an idea of what if Josh mimicked his voice to one of the scientists and was begging for help, pretending to be sane and normal, just so the scientist could let him out. Like, he speaks normal, and then as soon as the scientist lets him out, Josh as a Wendigo kills him, and Josh as a Wendigo, we get to see him release the other Wendigos, which, like I said, just shows the intelligence of the Wendigos. Now they're smarter. You know what I mean? Like, the head Wendigo is a lot smarter now because it's been killed so many times, and it knows how humans work. It knows human technology. Like, imagine that. Imagine how dangerous that would be.
Yeah, no, very much so. And, like I say, we saw the mimic thing, and it potentially, and it does kill Ash a lot for a lot of people in the first game. So it would be cool if it kept that power and it used it successfully. And that was just what broke it out to start the origin for your Until Dawn idea. So, yeah, no, I'm all on board for that.
Awesome. Yeah, what do you think, Jack?
I love the fact that actually it's almost, it's obviously not, but it's almost like it's AI in a way, whereby it's studying human behaviour and it's becoming more intelligent as a result. So to expand on some of the things you mentioned, like the mimicking, to then use it against the humans. We've already mentioned like the fact that they're science lab driven, so they've got all these other things going on. It makes them a more frightening prospect, because not only do they look ghoulish, and they're obviously very ruthless with how they like dispatch of humans, but to add like a new level of intelligence to that as well, will, I think, serve them as villains even more, but also like lend to some interesting choices in the game.
Yeah, I think so too. By the way, with the post-credit scene, I still cannot figure out the Sam post-credit scene, but I always thought that it's pretty obvious that Dr. Hill was talking to her. So my interpretation for that scene was that at some point, Sam eventually gets therapy from Dr. Hill, the same therapist that, Josh used to talk to. So part of me thought of, what if Sam in the sequel becomes the next Josh? And what I mean by that is she has blackouts. She has moments where she doesn't know what she's doing. Because remember that cut on her arm? I don't think that was maybe supernatural. I think maybe just Sam um, is partially like maybe she was partially suicidal, or maybe her blackout self just did that, hurt herself, and she doesn't remember that. Like, you know what I mean? That's something that maybe I would do in the sequel with Sam's character, where maybe she has blackouts. And as Mike and the other characters, we get to see this. And also, another thing is, I thought this would be absolutely crazy. What if, as the Wendigos, they can mimic other sounds? Like, what if they can mimic a baby crying? What if they can mimic um, and act like a siren, where they call upon someone, and for some reason this person goes towards them, and like it's almost like they're brainwashed? That's another thing. What if this person, like, what if Wendigos can make like, what if a certain sound which attracts humans towards them? That's another thing that I thought about adding. So what do you guys think about that?
Something it would get me if the Wendigo mimicked the sound of a dog barking or crying. I'm gonna be going in there if that's the choice. So you know what, like it could even do that thing that was sort of subtly hinted in the first Until Dawn. It could use sort of like the animal world as well, but twist it and actually use it to manipulate the player. So no, yeah, I think all of these are like really solid ideas, and I think like the fans would get behind them.
Yeah, I agree. I would be a victim to that as well. But like, yeah, I could see it being quite a difficult game. If you're ramping up the stakes and you're making the Wendigos altered and they're more powerful, stronger, and they're using sort of like, you know, human nature and empathy against them, yeah, then I reckon it would be really hard to get a full set of characters out unscathed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing about Until Dawn. No characters get out unscathed. They're going to be traumatized for life, even
Yeah.
if they do survive. But you know, that's kind of the beauty of the game series. And yeah, I also had an idea of like, I think I feel like the beginning of the game, you could be like this. That would be crazy if they just showed a family driving. They just got a Christmas tree, and then all of a sudden, um, a Wendigo crashes in the car, and it cuts to black. You hear screams, and then at some point later in the game, as Mike and Sam, we come across that abandoned car and just blood. Like the family has been killed, and like I said, we get to find out that obviously, yes, this is when Josh and the other Wendigos escaped the lab, and um, yeah, basically, like, yeah, about what you said. Yeah, Wendigo's using empathy against the characters and just being more intelligent, because that's the thing too. Like, the main Wendigo has been killed so many times. I definitely think that like when Wendigos see fire and stuff, they're gonna be a lot more cautious. Maybe like they have like a pack mentality. I know in the first game, Hannah fought the other Wendigos, but what if in the second game they have more of a pack mentality? And that's, like I said, how the stakes are different, because in the first game we didn't know what Wendigos are, but there were some helps that the game gave us, where it's like, hey, you need to stand perfectly still. They don't like fire, you know, and they fight each other instead of like join together. But in the second game, it's like, no, Wendigos, they are very similar to how they were in the first game, but they're very much switched around. So like Mike and Sam knowing this stuff about Wendigos, even though like you think like, oh, Mike and Sam are gonna save these people in this town, they're gonna be experts in this, and then Mike and Sam realize that, oh crap, no, these Wendigos are different. We've never faced Wendigos like this before. They don't have the same exact mentality, the same looks. They're very different, you know. So in a way, you take it like Mike and Sam are literally are like fishes out of water again in this sequel.
I think you'd need that, because otherwise you're going into a game then knowing what the pitfalls of the villain are. So yeah, I feel like to have something else up the Wendigo sleeve, I feel like not only is it good for like the characters in game, but obviously externally as the player, you're then kept on your toes a lot more, aren't you, for like QTEs and choices and all those things that we've come to love as part of like Until Dawn and choice-based games.
Yeah, exactly. I would also play with the whole nature thing a little bit more in the sequel, because I always felt like in the first game, whether or not you killed the squirrel or the bird or whatever, those were just like minor things. But imagine like it's more massive, where it's like, oh, you kill a random bunny, and then all of a sudden it's like this tornado like of choices, a consequence, like, you know what I mean, just happens, like, you know what I mean, like that would definitely be absolutely crazy. And obviously, yeah, like imagine one of the endings being like wendigos in a city, like it's like I don't know about LA, but yeah, imagine that in like New York or something. It's snowing, it's around Christmas time, and all of a sudden you see wendigos on top of skyscrapers, and like just like, oh my goodness, like that would probably be the dark ending of the game, like wendigos being free and escaping the town, and it's like, yeah, they're out in the world.
Was there anything else, Brian, or are you happy to end?
Yeah, I guess, like, did you guys have any other questions? I would have like, and like I said, the other characters, they just have a minor thing. Like we find out Ashley and Chris are, you know, like if they survive the first game, like there's a moment where like Sam mentions them or she sees them on her phone or something, and it's like, oh yeah, like they got married and maybe have a kid or something, and then Jessica is Mike mentions that he sees her sometimes at a mental hospital because she's still dealing with the trauma, like things like that, obviously, just minor things. Also, obviously, I don't know what other characters I would have in the game minus Josh, Sam, and Mike. Like as far as like the new cast, that's a bit tricky.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned like if Sam is taking sessions with Dr. Hill in this game, you could definitely bring back the Dr. Hill as narrator, but instead of it being, you know, like sort of like the psychology scenes or the therapy scenes to the psycho, you could definitely implement it towards Sam. And if Sam is going to be the main character, you could almost, the way Until Dawn tailored the game through these sessions, you could almost bring back a similar thing where, apart from the fact that there is sort of no sort of mask, or, you know, it's aimed at the player and then it like integrates itself in the game. I would just be happy if we had Dr. Hill and Sam talking, and Sam filled out some questions like what she's most scared of, you know, like what she trusts the least and stuff. And I definitely think you could probably implement Dr. Hill in the game to bring back the narration little breaks.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but do you think maybe there should be certain parts where characters have a dark path? And what I meant by that is, what if Sam could turn evil in the game? And what I mean by that, and I know it's crazy, like why would Sam be evil? Well, one of the things I mentioned is like, I think like that post-credit scene was kind of setting up Sam as the new Josh, where has issues with her mental health. And what if she does have blackouts? What if, you know, throughout the sequel, what if she has blackouts and moments where she's not herself? And then also, obviously, like I said, imagine Mike and Sam finding out what the government was going to do with new Wendigos and all that. And Mike and Sam find out that, you know, the government created the Wendigos and now a whole town has been murdered. And you know, now the government's trying to cover it up, and that's why they're in danger, and these other characters are in danger. They have to survive until dawn. And I just thought about how crazy would it be, is depending on your choices, what if Sam actually turns on Mike and says that, you know, the Wendigos should be free? I know that's like, I'm not saying like assassinate her character, but I just thought about that would be incredibly dark thing to do for her character. As I'm just throwing the idea out there, as what if Sam says that humanity deserves this. This is justice for everything. And she says that, you know, no more hiding, no more keeping the secret. The Wendigos should be out there. The world should know about them. And this is the consequence of our actions and other people's actions. Like, you know what I mean? What if Sam just is completely, depending on your choices, what if she's completely lost her mind the way Josh was in the first game? Or maybe as Mike, you can make the right choices and save her from pulling a gun on him and doing that. Like, you know what I mean? What if there's different Sams by the end of the game?
I do love the idea of Sam almost becoming the new Josh. I feel like for me though, it's rooted in the execution of it. I wouldn't want to give her a dark character for a bit, you know, a dark character's sake, which, you know, obviously it's rooted in the choices that players would make throughout the game. So if someone wanted it to take it that way, then there's a strong possibility that it would. I think for me, it's almost in that the linear moments. Like Sam is like such a loved character, and I think how believable is it for her to go down this path? I think that will be the key in the storytelling. How is that translated to the player? Because I feel like if it was just we've seen it in like Game of Thrones and stuff, with like Daenerys Targaryen, where it just feels a little bit,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like she's gone a bit evil at the end, and you don't really get the impact of it. So I wouldn't want it to go like that. But if the storytelling was there, if the character development was there, then as a possibility, I'd be down for it.
I totally agree, man. What about you, Liam?
Yeah, like I like the idea of having a dark ending, but no, I completely agree with Jack. It really depends on the execution, and sometimes, you know, I think it can be one of those subjective choices, maybe, where you might think good or evil, but you might actually mistake that, you know, with like empathetic versus survivalist. Maybe there's a choice in there where like Mike's at jeopardy and Sam can save him, but it's at the risk of like a Wendigo outbreak or something. So maybe like there's a philosophical question like, do I sacrifice my friend here to save the world, maybe? So it could be that, you know, there's choices in there that are like that, and then as a player we have the option to kind of pick like the one that, you know, is minimal risk to humanity. But then someone else could look at that as a perspective of like, well, you just killed your friend there. So I would love a lot of those great choices in the game like that. So yeah, no, I definitely think that's an avenue you could potentially go down.
Awesome. Well, I think that's pretty much everything. Now we just need to pitch it to Supermassive.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Jack will link them on X, where, you know, when we're when the video's scheduled and he does the marketing.
Yeah.
Don't you worry.
Unless they're listening already, you never know. But
Yeah, well, Supermassive
honestly,
Games have nicked our ideas in the past. You know, Jack previously pitched Directive 8020 pretty much, and now they've gone and nicked that. So
yeah. And that was on the
Whoa,
next
that's awesome.
Supermassive game series as well, wasn't it?
it really was.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
No worries. Thank you very much, Brian, for, you know, coming on and sharing your ideas. It's been nice to talk about Until Dawn again, actually. Just as a quick FYI to fans, we will do an Until Dawn remastered review at some point. We've been pretty busy of late and we're getting other videos done first, but do look out for that. But of course, yeah, do let us know in the comments. What did you think of Brian's idea? What did you think of mine and Liam's ideas as well? Tell us your ideas in the comments. What should Until Dawn 2 look like? And we'll look forward to reading and replying to them. So once again, Brian, thanks for coming on. And hopefully it's not 2 years until you're next on.
That sounds good, man. Sounds good. I'll need a great idea though next time. They don't come ideas like this don't come very often, so we'll see. But yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Nah, art can't be rushed, man. Take as much time as you need. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, for watching the video. We'll see you all in the next one.
Catch you later.